Okay. Testing. Not working? We had this so good here with tech support
It should,
30 minutes ago.
it should be good.
Is they supposed to use the microphone?
No, that's for out in the audience. This microphone should be hot.
Yeah.
Is somebody giving me a thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay. So unfortunately, did they miss all the good stuff about the bathrooms being behind us? Because that was the highlight right there. Okay. All right, we are back on point. A couple things I wanted to do. One was to appreciate Commissioner Ryan's office and leadership in shepherding Civic Life to where we are today. And I'd also wanted to appreciate the Mayor Willer's leadership and staff for embracing Civic Life as we come over there. I think that's just really important to recognize. Let's see, the other things were, phones. If you have your phone with you, please place on silent. Double check for any alarms. I just did. And with that, I'd like to bring up Darlene Urban Garrett, please, who is our wonderful co-host for the evening from Neighbors Northwest. Please do come.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here and in person, and I want to thank everybody that showed up online as well. This is a really important meeting for our coalition, and there will be a few more important meetings for our coalition as we move forward. I'm the executive director of Neighbors West Northwest, and we are in the middle of a transition. While the city and all of its departments and all of the electeds are transitioning with new duties, responsibilities, and funding, so is Neighbors West Northwest, because we are an organization closely tied to the city. We will be and are already, to a limited degree, operating as the District 4 coalition. We recently discovered, and there are handouts on the table, we recently discovered our funding allocation for fiscal year 24-25. With this information, we now know in 24-25, we will be underfunded. We will not be able to provide services at the current level for 31 neighborhoods as we are providing for 11 neighborhoods. If we cannot secure additional revenues equal to at least another $150,000, our job as District 4 neighborhoods collectively will be to cut services. And you'll be very involved as neighborhood associations in that. I will be looking to all of you, all of the NAs, community-based organizations, residents of the West and the East Side, Moreland, East Moreland, Selwood. I will be looking to all of you to guide the efforts as we developed our 24-25 budget. So listen, learn, and ask the hard questions. Our next step could very well be delivering our message of underfunding to our city council. So learn as much as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Appreciate you, of course. With that, I know I had one more thing I wanted to remind us of.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course, Mike.
I'd like to introduce our president, Vadim Mazursky, who is in the audience tonight too. Sorry, Vadim.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know there was one more item. Our Q&A. We are going to do Q&A. We are going to provide Q&A opportunity at the end of our presentations. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. And with that, I'm going to move directly into, we have a wonderful representative from GTAC to share information with us. And so, Ms. Juliet, if you would come up and share, please.
Thanks, Kimberly. So I'm glad Kimberly got those IT issues out of the way, so I won't be embarrassed when I have them. You can't hear me.
Project your voice.
Or maybe I'm just not a loud person. So My name is Juliet Hyams. I'm a longtime neighborhood activist and advocate, but I'm here tonight representing the Government Transition Advisory Committee. And so I'm just going to give you some quick background, most of which you probably already know. We are a 15-member advisory committee appointed in March 2023 to serve until March 2025. Our role is to ensure effective and efficient implementation of charter reform, engage the public, and provide strategic advice to the city. Representing diverse sectors and views, we're united in involving Portlanders for a successful transition. We encourage all Portlanders to participate in the transition by attending our meetings, submitting public comments, or requesting briefings or presentations with committee members. That's the right arrow. Yeah, I just.
It's not doing any arrow. Is it because we went to screen share? Because I was totally fine.
Shouldn't be, but shouldn't matter.
Change it. Did we change did any of that change?
I didn't touch any of that.
Okay, yeah, so that. I just literally did this. You are screen sharing, yes, we are.
Can we move the slides with this?
You can try. The one underneath. I gotta leave the recording there.
Sheesh.
It's almost perfect. It's almost perfect.
Share.
It's the right button. And I literally just did it before we started.
Yeah.
The more the merrier. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Which one are you presenting from?
Here.
Oh, this is
I'm
where,
just-
No, she's reading from
That's
there.
just mine.
but this is where the Zoom is?
Yeah.
Yes.
And, okay. Here. 'Cause this is, you want to find where the actual presentation is, not where the shared presentation. You know, so did you pull it up?
It's running here.
It is
so-
running from here. Yes.
so you're-
Oh, there we go. Okay, we just
What
had to
did you
click on
touch?
it. We just had to click on it. We were in
Oh.
the Zoom, we needed to be in the presentation.
Ah, there it is. Thank you.
Okay. There, we got that out of the way. You always have to have one. So in November 2022, Portlanders voted to change city government in 3 significant ways. First, we'll be allowing voters to rank candidates in order of their preference using ranked choice voting. Instead of just picking one candidate, voters are able to rank candidates in order of preference. It's important to note that ranked choice voting eliminates the need for May primaries for city elections, which will help ensure that more Portlanders can elect councilors during one election with higher voter turnout. Second, creating 4 new geographic districts with 3 members elected to represent each district, expanding the city council to a total of 12 members. And third, replacing the commission form of government with a city council that focuses on setting policy and a mayor elected citywide to run the city's day-to-day operations with the help of a professional city administrator. Oh, okay. The city has been working to implement changes Portlanders voted for by January 1, 2025. Implementing these changes includes 2 primary areas of work: election methods and governance. In election methods, the work includes establishing geographic districts, which was completed by the Independent District Commission in August. It also includes the administration of ranked choice voting, elections, and voter education, which are in progress leading up to the first election using geographic, districted, and ranked choice voting in November 2024. In governance, this includes the work of the Independent Salary Commission to set salaries for future city council members, mayor, and the auditor, which was completed in August, and revising the council operations code to align with mayor council form of government, which was done in September. Governance also includes the following items in which work is underway: updating the city's budget process, renovating City Hall, reviewing and revising city code, recruiting a city administrator, and future service delivery improvements, which are recommendations for the future council to consider how city services will be accessed. I'll wrap up by covering districts and what you can expect in the November 2024 election. As you may know, currently our 4 city commissioners are elected at large, meaning citywide. This will change to a district system where 3 city council members will be elected per district. Districts are geographic areas smaller than the city as a whole, and only voters within that geographic area can vote for representatives in their districts. As you can see on the screen, the districts are numbered. District 1 is the most eastern district, District 2 the most northern, District 3 is the inner southeast district, and District 4 is the most western district. Per charter amendments, all districts will be running in the November 24 election. The mayor and councilors from districts 1 and 2 will be elected for 4 years, and the auditor and councilors from districts 3 and 4 will be elected for 2 years. In subsequent elections, everyone will be elected to 4-year terms. A district map lookup feature is currently available on Portland Maps to look up in what district you are in based on your address, but I think probably everyone here knows where they are now. You've seen how simple it will be to rank candidates on the ballot. Sorry, did I skip one? Nope. And it's important to highlight that ranked choice voting for city elections will begin with the 2024 election, as stated earlier. Voter education by Multnomah County, the city, and community partners will strategically begin after the May 2024 election, closer to when voters are expected to rank candidates for city elections. This timing is important and it's a best practice for minimizing confusion, reducing misinformation, and ensuring the success of the voter education campaign. For more information about the 2024 elections and to access voter education materials, visit portland.gov/vote2024. It's a great resource to help you understand the voting process and make sure your vote counts. And here's just more mobilizing information. And I think that's the end of my section. Thank you for your attention, and really feel free to submit email to our committee, testify at the beginning of our meetings, and call me and talk to me. I would welcome that.
Excellent. Thank you,
Thank
Julia.
you, Kimberly.
We appreciate our volunteers, folks showing up to help and keep us on track. I am going to use both screens here. I promise not to touch that one though. It's one of those where you go wakey wakey. All right, perfect. So go here. Excellent. So I'm here to talk to you about the Office of Community and Civic Life and our new District Coalition offices info session. I like to begin here with our mission statement because I think it's really super important. Our mission statement is our guiding light, our North Star. So we're going to read it together. What is the purpose that we do? We connect the people of Portland with their city government to promote the common good. Our programs create a culture of collaboration, expanding possibilities for all Portlanders to contribute to their knowledge, experience, and creativity to address local concerns and make life better in the city we all share. Let's go. I first want to introduce our team. If you've never met our team before, we are a team of 4. Something didn't switch, hold on. Multiple buttons here. And so this is our service team who is going to be present. I think you've heard about 4 coordinators aligning with what? The 4 DCOs that will be in each, one in each district. So we have Sharon Keast, who's currently been serving as our Southwest coordinator. I have Jason Hagan, who is our East coordinator. Mary Jaren Kelly, who's been serving in North, as well as Summer Money, who will become more of our Northeast coordinators. And then, of course, myself. Our work that we've been doing to connect and collaborate, et cetera, we will continue to do just at a deeper level in partnership with our district coalition offices. So to go a little bit deeper, I utilize a model called the 4 Cs. I made this up. I like it. Let's see how you like it. The 4 Cs describe who we are. This is what we in Civic Life do specifically of the neighborhood team. We are conveners.
Next slide.
Look at this. Look at this. I cannot go fast enough. There we go. We are conveners. We bring people together. We are conveyors. We get messaging out. As it comes in, we want to get it out. We are connectors. We connect folks with resources, with other folks, and we're conduits. So whether it's resources, whether it's information, whether it's whatever it has to do with for the betterment and for the common good, this is, to me, the 4 Cs really do describe the work of not just now our coordinators, but what we're going to be doing together with our district coalition offices. Oh, I'm hitting the right buttons. There we go. Now, drum roll, if I had one, I would totally do a drum roll. Thank you. Appreciate audience participation. Our nonprofit district coalition partners. Some people know who these are and some people don't, so I like to go through them. As we align with our voting districts. So remember, this whole transition is about aligning with what voters asked for, right? So we're in a new voting district model. We simply wanted the district coalition offices, it seemed to make sense, to also align our work with those voting districts. So we have in District 1, Central Northeast neighbors, and we actually have Allison Stoll here if you want to wave a hand at folks. And then we have in District 2, so let's talk about that area. So District 1, remember that's East Portland. And then we have District 2, Northeast Coalition of Neighborhoods is our DCO for that area. So that's North and Northeast Portland. District 3, Southeast Uplift and Southeast, of course. And then District 4, I believe there's maybe 1 or 2 of you that might be familiar with District 4. So these are our core partners who've been already doing the work, right? So this is not new work. What is new or different is that my team is working more regularly moving forward as of July 1st, but even now, we're working more regularly together. We're not strangers, we're just working more regularly together. And here, thank you, because Juliet already brought up the map, but I just want to remind you, like, this is where boundaries were, and we see that. But now as you look at the green and the blue and the gold and the, I'm gonna call that mauve for now, that's what the new configuration looks like. So let's jump in over here, and I'm gonna flip my slides down to where I'm at. There we go. In this slide, this is an introduction of Civic Life and the DCOs coming together in alignment with the new civic service area, with the city administrator. And I'm saying city administrator because we know that we're only going to be with the mayor's office till the end of the year. And then we're going to transition over with the city administrator. But these are an outline of the priorities that we're going to be paying attention to. Remember which one I pushed. So let's begin here. Organizational capacity. So what does that look like? Looks like training the trainer. And there's a lot of different opportunities to do that. When you see here talking about providing training, technical assistance, that particular bullet point. So one of the things that comes up is neighborhood associations have to keep a standing, right? They have to know how to file their taxes. They have to know how to do their elections. Do you all know that that's part of the training that's provided through a district coalition office? So let me remind you, our current model is 7 district coalition offices. That's what we're doing right now. We have 3 city run and we have our 4 nonprofit. We are now condensing to just 4, but we're not losing that particular service because this is a service that serves the community, and it makes sense. we will be going through, and that's part of our work sessions right now, is to go through, look at the services that we provide and look at what is it that we can keep, what can go in a parking lot, what might be being done already in another bureau that we can kind of parlay and bring about some efficiencies. So that's an example of building out organizational capacity. I got it now. There's a rhythm. It's 2 buttons at the same time. Here we go. Economic prosperity. How do we show up in economic prosperity? Well, I've given you 4 different bullet points here. I'm going to jump in on promoting neighborhood cleanups and revitalization efforts. Why? Because that seems to be a really hot topic right now. And it has been for quite a while. I see some head nods. So one of the things that we see as the work that we already do by participating in and promoting the neighborhood cleanups, we are participating in economic development. I know of one particular business owner. I know that he's not replaced some windows and they've just remained boarded up, but he still does his cleanup and he has a crew of folks that help with cleaning up. And you may say, well, why wouldn't he replace the windows? Because they've been broken out 3 times. And he's like, you know, what I can focus on is let me keep the area clean so people feel like they can still come in. Facilitating communication and engagement for economic growth. Do y'all realize how many meetings that District Coalition offices either attend, participate in, convene? Have you ever thought about that? And why are those meetings important? Because there's so much shared information that is happening here, and it's part of what we all do to get the information out. So let's just say, Vadim, let's just say you had some sort of office hours and you're promoting your work. Don't you know that one of the areas that we can as neighborhood associations and the District Coalition offices is make sure that people know that maybe you do pro bono work and you're offering it to the community. So we are a communication beacon and, if you will, a soundboard to get information out. I'm feeling so super smooth right now that I'm being able to do both of these. So let's talk about, this is another huge priority coming out of the mayor's office and for all of us. So what is a way that our DCOs and the neighborhood team come together? Where do we find ourselves? Well, one of the things is engaging with stakeholders to address homeless. I mean, if we're not all coming together, if we're not hearing from one another, what the impact, if there are impacts, what are they? What solutions, what resources are in place? Part of our role internally is to be able to look at what the city resources are and ensure that people are actually accessing those resources. If there's a hiccup, city staff, we can come in and we can, you know, do that thing where we go, hi, this is Kimberly from Civic Life. We have a question in the community about what is your office doing about fill in the blank. Can I connect you? That's one of the ways that we can do it. The other thing is to, when we're looking at supporting initiatives for homeless outreach services or promoting good neighbor agreements for shelter locations. One of the things that I recently asked is, have you included the actual neighbors as part of this agreement? And if so, has safety come up? And I kind of got a silence in my question. And I said, you know, you may want to address the safety component as you're creating that, because that's been something that we've heard throughout different meetings with neighbors across the city. And then livability. Well, pick a feature here. I'm gonna come back to neighborhood cleanups because that is something that I'm seeing over and over again. I've seen the frustration of making a call, but not knowing where to call. I'm seeing a frustration of non-responsive. One of the things that we get to do is help to organize cleanups and make sure that we are tackling or tying in rather to the right organization that actually within our bureaus that actually does deploy any of the resources for these cleanups. The other thing is addressing neighborhood concerns to improve overall quality of life. Well, what does that look like? Part of that is convening. Part of that is showing up. Part of that is bubbling up concerns. Part of that is connecting you to those who can be most responsive to your concerns. And that's the shared work of the district coalition offices, us coming alongside, us being able to liaison some of those questions, some of those concerns into the city, and being able to keep drilling into finding the resource or finding the answer. Okay, one of these is changing. What is it? There we go. Safety. Safety is one of the another top priority here. I'm going to hone in on promoting emergency preparedness and disaster response efforts. Why am I doing that? We recently just had a significant weather event. Was it more or less than what we thought? Well, I think when we had thousands of people without power for many days, that was huge. So when I think of emergency preparedness, you know, we have a program that right here in the city. How do we get that information out? One of the things that I've heard specifically from that program is the first responders generally to situations such as this is your neighbor. How important is this? So this is information that we would want to ensure, and we would want to make sure we are connecting neighbors to this resource that the city has already. Collaborating with law enforcement agencies on safety initiatives, sorry, that kind of speaks for itself. Strengthening community engagement to address safety concerns. Well, what does that look like? What does that look like with your district coalition offices right now? To me, part of that looks like the things that are already promoted through their distribution email lists, through their newsletters, the shared information that we have internally to make sure that we get it out externally. And somebody might pause here and say, well, that's a lot of information sharing. Well, a lot of the action can't begin until you have the information. That's why the information sharing is so important. Now, if we go here, and I'm going to say, with all that I've said, I think I'm going to the slide now that folks are most concerned about. Here's our 4 districts, and here is the distribution of the dollars of those 4 districts. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. I'm sure, and I know that we have questions, so I want to speak to a lot of this. I actually have some notes, so I want to make sure that I hit those things. So one of the things that we wanted to share here, we see our division of the presented budget for 24-25, so not right this second, but 24-25, which shows a distribution of the funding to each district during a time of budgetary constraints, where the city is demonstrating a commitment of investment into the community. Of note is that the city has found there are efforts more efficiently done and delivered through the nonprofit model, hence providing a better use of taxpayer dollars for speed of delivery and of services and community assistance. One of the things that I didn't mention when we were looking at the economic prosperity slide is our small grants and sponsorship program. Can I just get a show of hands of who might know about those? Anybody in here know about those? So those are dollars that are set aside, right? That go into, this is things that people within our community can apply for. And it's meant to, whether it's starting a new business or I just have this really quick idea, I refer to apple pie a lot. So let's just say, I think I make the best apple pie. I don't want to do a whole business, but I just want to share it with the community, right? It makes me feel good. So I apply for a grant. And what is my goal? My goal is just to create a table to bring folks together, because I think that's part of promoting the common good, just being human towards one another. I apply for the grant, the panelists review my grant, and maybe I'm one of the successful winners. Why is that important? That's an investment. One, I feel super good that I got to get my apple pie out. I got to share, right? What is the impact? Other people might find out, wait a minute, the city does grants? Like, you just made apple pie and you got a grant for that? Yes. To me, that's part of the city's commitment to investing in community. It isn't always about, I'm gonna scale up and now I'm gonna make a whole pie shop and all the things, nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it's just about how finding those on-ramps to be able to connect and interact, because you know what? If we have a national emergency or just a local emergency, I'm gonna wanna be connected. Will you help me? Will you help me? If I need a cup of sugar for those apple pie, can I come knock on your door and say, I'm down to my last pie and I've run out of sugar. Would you share sugar with me? Well, see, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. So what does that look like? I'm building capacity in community. I'm meeting somebody that I haven't met before. How important is that? It's extremely important. We need to know one another. We need to come together in the ways that we can. And yes, let's just get right into it. Does the budget look different? Yes. Has anybody read anything recently that kind of speaks to why does the budget look different? I'll give you my short answer. The budget looks different because the money that we have, which is no new money, by the way, we are in a 5% budget constraint across the city. The money that we had in budget, we took and we simply distributed it across the 4 districts. That is what we did. And did we see some shifts and change? Absolutely. Is District 3 getting less money to the tune of around 30% less? Yes. Has anybody read any information recently about why that is? Head nod, yes, no. Let me go on. District 3 received a bump in dollars due to some COVID dollars that we had. They were to respond to a deficit over decades of dollars where there was an underinvestment in East Portland. So those dollars were used in a one-time way to speak to that. In the new fiscal year, we do not have those same one-time dollars. They no longer exist. What we do have is the base budget, and what we did was divide that budget amongst roughly per each population area for districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's my simple answer. Does it feel good? I will answer that one and say no. But I'm going to remind you, I've got a wonderful neighbor over here who's willing to give me a cup of sugar for my apple pie. What the goal is out of Civic Life, and I'm speaking to specifically our neighborhood program, but please understand within Civic Life, I also have Adapt to Impact, I have Immigrant Refugee Program, I have our advisory boards program, I also have our business operations that is present in Civic Life. We are a whole bureau. We are all impacted, but guess what we're also doing? We are trying to look to see what are some efficiencies that we can find where we can leverage, whether it's knowledge, who you know is always good, whether it's resources in another bureau that meets the needs that we have discovered and know within our neighborhoods. That's pretty much in a nutshell what we're working on doing. We're taking this time. This is as I said earlier, this is the 4th one of 4 sessions that we try to spearhead and get out as quickly as possible so that you all were very informed as to the transition and what we as Civic Life, specifically in our bureau, are doing to be responsive. That's the goal. We're hoping that we've met that goal. I also know that GTAC is going to be providing more sessions coming up as well. So you can look forward to that. And let's see, where I end up now is we do have resources. As we enter in to Q&A, I am very excited to answer questions and to engage. I think I've got Darlene here, who's also very excited. I mean, her excitement is just bubbling over here towards me. We've got Allison here, and folks may have things to say online and offline. What we're going to do is popcorn between here, those present, and those online to answer those questions. My only request of you is, you've got a tough question, that's totally okay. If we have questions that are very similar in nature, we may want to bundle those. If we're not able to get to the question, please do email it in so we can make sure, because we will answer questions after this session. So I don't want you to feel like we're gonna try to avoid, or we want to answer and be responsive. Is that clear enough? Give me a head nod or just a twitch of the eyebrow. I'm good with it. All right, let's get ready to move into Q&A. And you want to do, you've got hot mic? We have a mic and it is coming your way. Do you want to add anything to it before I?
The only thing that I would like is if you could
Mic,
take
mic.
it back. If you could take it back to the last slide that basically shows how much money we're getting.
Yes, that is go. I feel good. Did we go back? We're back.
Okay.
There we go.
The only thing I want to add for everybody is the 431, 486. I know my voice is very loud. If you take 431, 486 and you remove $70,000 from that total, it basically leaves $44,000 for our operations. I'm saying remove 70,000, it could be a little more than that because that's our small grant piece. We normally fund $35,000 worth of small grants in Neighbors West Northwest. I doubled it to handle the rest of District 4. It could be probably a little bit more than that to make it equal. But if you take $70,000 out of that, our base grant turns out to be, I have it written down somewhere. Yeah, three, and then, okay. The bottom line is basically we have an additional $44,000 to triple our operation at NWNW. And that's real. That's real today. I think our goal, and I want you to ask all the hard questions here tonight. Our goal is probably going to be to put ourselves in front of City Council, because otherwise I don't know where the money is coming from. You will hear it more than once tonight that the city is maxed out on funding. Civic Life, that's their story. It's also, we've met with the mayor's office, that's their story. But we've also know that we need to lay our plight in front of the entire City Council. So with that, let's go to Q&A. And I have the hot mic.
I was trying to turn on, but he
Are
said go green.
Okay, we're gonna take like 2 or 3 questions in the room and then we'll go on to the screen.
I think I have a simple question. On one of your first slides where you showed the boundaries and you showed a line in the mauve, in our mauve area, that was farther west. What did that mean?
Means we have neighborhoods on the west side to include
That one.
Selwood, Moreland, East Moreland, Reed, Arden Creek, Johnson Creek.
Well, what's that jagged line up towards the north that's on the west? That's the county line. That's
the
not part of
city.
our district. then.
Yeah, it is. That's our district within the purple. Those are the north, south, east, west boundaries. to the
Right,
west
but
side.
what's that line that goes farther out from the purple?
That's the city boundary that's on the other side of Forest Park. That's Forest Park.
So are there residents there that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then why is it mauve? That's what I can't
Oh,
figure out.
maybe because that's 5,000 acres of Forest Park. Next question.
I'll come back to that. There we go.
Do you have a number of neighborhood associations per each of those districts?
We do.
What was it for like 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Oh, that's a great question. Off the top of my head, I don't have that off the top of my head. I can get it for you.
Because that's sort of important because this is the financing will be, the neighborhood association is an association of neighborhood associations.
Correct.
I'm saying that correctly. And each neighborhood association has its own resources that it pulls. So if there are a lot more neighborhood associations in one of these areas than the other, then does this simple divided 4 ways appropriation make sense? Well, that's fine, but historically there is different neighborhood, different number of neighborhood associations within these boundaries. So we're not here to redraw neighborhood association boundaries. We're here to finance neighborhood coalitions and the current historical neighborhood associations. So kind of like the simple answer of like, we'll just divide it 4 ways initially doesn't really make sense unless we're going to also redraw boundaries to neighborhood associations, which is something that I don't think we're ready for, and I don't think is something that the neighborhood associations really want. So I guess if we could have the number, if we could also have the number, the district name, the finance number, and then the number of associations, neighborhood associations within
That
those
are
boundaries
associated
currently
with it.
and historically, I think that would be very important, because I think a lot of the tension in the group here is if there are a lot more neighborhood associations in one, then it really doesn't make sense that they should be equally financed to a district that doesn't have as many neighborhood associations, because there's not the resource pool isn't there currently. That's something we might need to fix down the road, but maybe there should be some sort of kind of practical approach to whatever the current boundaries and number of neighborhood associations are.
So, Icy, did you want to respond to that at all? I wasn't sure if you wanted to before I say. I was just going to mention if I failed to mention beforehand.
Allison is here from CNN. Allison has 14 neighborhoods in CNN. 31.
Yeah, so if there's 14 neighborhood associations in one of the districts and 30 in the other, then the simple kind of just split it 4 ways pie doesn't really make sense unless there's more, unless the boundaries or the the number of neighborhood associations is capped, which I don't think is something we're prepared to do. That's right. The resource pool is per association, not per person.
These are community-based organizations and neighborhood associations, not people. So our services are organizationally. Wait a second.
Use the mic is what he was.
Please use the mic.
Okay. Okay. To kind of build on your question too, right now we have more coalitions than we will have. There are going to be several coalitions that will be assimilated into another coalition. So, while Allison has 13 neighborhood associations, she will have, there will be more in, won't there be more in District 1? So what? So
Allison, can you come?
So so District 2 will have 14. Oh, good numbers. Right, okay. So I took the city's mapping tool and you can overlay neighborhood associations on it. And I took that and lined it up with what the new districts were going to be. So the new District 1 is going to have 29 neighborhood associations. District 2 is going to have 14. District 3 is going to have 19. And District 4 is going to have 33, but are there 2 that are not active or something? So, yeah, so you basically, so District 1 and District 4 are going to have twice as many neighborhood associations as District 2 and 3.
So one of the factors that I didn't present here in the slides is that, well, I did, but maybe you didn't factor it in. With the change comes the team that I introduced you to. That team is going to be responsible to help shoulder, to shift, to find efficiencies, all the things. That's part of what's happening. There's admin tasks that are happening. There's shared resources such as, I don't know, let's throw it out there, Zoom accounts.
So can I just,
Mike?
sorry, I have the mic for just a second here.
Yes.
So the problem is that each neighborhood is, yeah, that'd be great. Each neighborhood association needs directors and officers insurance, for
Correct.
example. There are things that are needed by each neighborhood association. So if you have 33 versus 14, those costs are double. And one of the most important things that
Mhm.
neighborhood coalitions provide is that directors and officers insurance, incorporation where needed, all of the administrative work
Yes.
that goes into each neighborhood association.
Mhm.
So that's just more important than a cup of sugar. I'm sorry. And
Oh,
so
I
one of the
don't
things, can I
disagree.
use your example for just a moment?
Absolutely.
So we have, and I know many neighborhoods do, an emergency preparedness committee. We have several people, as many as 8 people on that committee, and they have worked for years to improve emergency preparedness in our neighborhood. They all work for free. They're all volunteers. All they need is directors and officers insurance so that we can keep a neighborhood association going. The very limited administrative support that we need to keep that neighborhood association going.
Mhm.
And for that, our neighborhood and the city of Portland gets years of free work by dedicated volunteers who live in their neighborhood and get these things done. And it's not just emergency preparedness, and it's not about a cup of sugar in emergency preparedness. It's about, we know we have shared where the radios are. We have built up resources within our neighborhood. We've shared all the things that go with that. We've worked with our local school. But it's not just that. We also put on parades. We put on, we just had a winter celebration. Smile, I know, puts on concerts in a park. These are the things that neighborhood associations do.
Mhm.
And we do them for free.
Mhm.
All we need is that basic amount of administrative support, directors and officers insurance, and the things that the Office of Civic Life is supposed to provide. And I widely support the work of CBOs. But first and foremost, these neighborhood associations are vitally important to their neighborhoods, and they need enough money to operate. Sorry.
So you're
Sorry
speaking
go on so
to,
much.
speaking to the insurance, correct?
Well, the
Based
insurance
at
is
the
an
crux?
important part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the other basic administrative support that we've gotten from Sewell that's been invaluable. And election support.
Yes.
Every neighborhood association has to run an election,
Mhm.
and our coalitions provide election support to run that safely and securely and without bias. There's a laundry list that everyone here could speak to about what coalitions do. And for
Mhm.
that, again, we do all the things in our neighborhoods that make our neighborhoods, that build exactly what you're talking about, which is community, safety, connection.
Mhm.
Those are the things neighborhood associations build. And all we need is directors and officers insurance, some administrative support, and enough money to run a coalition. Thank
So
you.
so just to be clear, the directors and officers insurance is included in the budget line items.
I haven't seen the budget line items. I don't know if anybody else has. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And so everything.
Yeah, and it's a little more expensive to buy insurance for 31 neighborhoods versus 19.
All right, some questions. Yeah, 2 questions online. This is from Jenny Breed. Without a comparable increase in funding, exactly what services that NWNW provides its current coalition partners does Civic Life suggest it cuts after it acquires the additional 22 neighborhoods, organizations from Southwest, Selwood, Reed, Eastmoreland, and Ardenwald?
I think I heard something about cuts. We haven't recommended any cuts at this point. What we have done is we've done 2 work sessions together, which is where we are delineating what are the services that are being provided, and then what are things, I think I used the word, is there something that can go on a parking lot for right now? Are there other things that can be connected with resources that we have in the city or elsewhere? Are there things that we can provide directly as staff? So those are some of the things that we are looking at through our work sessions with the DCOs.
Well, I think the question is more pointed within our office. I mean, I oversee, for example, my job is program manager,
Mhm.
right? So about 80% of my work week is supporting the 11 neighborhood associations. And I just look at the funding that we have currently and the staffing we have, and nobody's resting on our laurels, right? We're working our tails off. And if you ask me to support 33 neighborhoods, 3 times as many, there aren't that many hours in the week. And we couldn't hire somebody else for $40,000 a year, even part-time,
So
to supplement that
every,
delta.
so.
So,
before we-
so the
before we
question,
before we separated into, like, for instance, with CNN's case, their coalition got very much fractionalized.
Right.
Is that a good word,
Yeah.
Allison? Okay. Do you recall that I said there are in the current ideation, there are 3 city-run coalitions, which means my staff has been running those 3 citywide or 3 specific city-run coalitions. All the neighborhoods that are contained in those, my staff has been running that. So that expertise, the relationships, all of those things, historical context, et cetera, are coming with the staff as we come together in this 4-district model.
okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. Another question, let's see. This is from Xavier, Vice President of the DNA. What's that? Co-president. Sorry. I'm deeply disturbed by the proposed funding paradigm. My understanding is that District 4 office will only be receiving $44,000 more, despite having nearly tripled the number of neighborhood associations to serve with the doubling of the population. 44K is not enough for one full-time employee. It is likely not enough to pay the additional insurance for all 31 NAs. By folding Sweeney into NWNW without paying NWNW more, you're functionally defunding civic engagement by $500,000. While there would surely be cost benefits to consolidation, 7 executive directors being taken down to 4, this is a drastic reduction in funding, which can only result in deep austerity at the institutional cornerstone of civic engagement in the city. I decidedly do not believe that this is what voters called for. And why? What is the rationale? What mechanism called for this? This is his question.
So I'll reverse engineer the question then. What called for this? Why are we here today? Why are we in this room? Why have we done these 4 sessions? Because the voters voted in charter reform, and this is a response to part of that charter reform, which is to transition. So we, as a bureau, are and have been responsive since last year to move with what was asked, to respond. Are there impacts? Yes. Are we wanting to mitigate those impacts? Yes. And that is why we are not talking in silos, i.e. just my team unto themselves. No, we are working directly with our DCO partners so that we can find the best solutions. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it time consuming? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. Yes. Hot mic.
Hi,
we
my name's
go.
Bob Weinstein.
Hi, Bob.
Full disclosure, I'm a candidate for city council in District 4. Full disclosure, I'm also a big supporter of neighborhood associations and coalitions. I have a couple questions, pretty simple ones. Who made the decision to align the coalitions with the new districts? Because the charter, to the best of my knowledge, did not direct that. So was that a decision that was recommended by the various neighborhood associations, coalitions, or was it a top-down decision from somewhere?
I'm gonna go with top down.
Okay, and then my second question has to do with the budget constraints.
Mhm.
Where's that coming from?
The 5% budget constraint?
Yeah, did somebody tell you?
The
there's
mayor's
a budget
office.
problem? Well, maybe it can help me out, because last week and then tomorrow, there's a proposal not only to hire 6 interim deputy administrators at the cost of between 2 and 3 million, but to give each of them 6 months of severance, no matter how long they work, and no matter if they fulfill 1 year of their 1-year temporary contract. They get 6 months severance if the council approves that tomorrow. $209,000 each, 1.254 million. This is rhetorical. Does that sound like a budget constraint to you? But more importantly, if the 1.254 million was given to you to fulfill what I understand the neighborhood associations and coalitions might need, would a portion of that be very helpful to you rather than being used in an office that apparently is immune from budget constraints?
Well, the budget that you're speaking of, constraint or the unconstrained, sounds like that's an answer for city council to respond to.
Okay, well, great.
Could it be helpful to have more in Civic Life's budget? Always.
So you've been told you have a cut, but somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else they're spending money like they have a printing press. Okay, thanks.
Across the bureaus,
Constraint-
not just us.
Right, constraints
yes.
everywhere except for the highest levels of city government. Okay.
We have IC Tall here from our business operations. IC, did you want to respond to that? With the mic, we got to get you a mic coming your way.
I just wanted to add that the 5%, like Kim had mentioned previously, is all across the city. How we start a budget process is that we have what we call a cow target number that is issued to us by the city budget office. And that number this year already reduced by 5%. So once we get that number, we then have to allocate the funding that is allocated to us to all of our existing programs and position that we have. So it's not something, it's not the process where we evaluate our needs and say we need $50,000 for program A, $100,000 more for program B. It's just a number that was provided to us and we need to work within that number. It's kind of the opposite of what normally we would think about.
Mike is coming your way.
Hi, Mary Ann Fitzgerald, Crestwood neighborhood. The existing budget allocation just for the 4 DCOs today, not including city staff, is 2.1 million. The whole neighborhood outreach budget is 3.6 million, which includes the city staff. Even if you took the 2.1 million current budget, divided it by 5 or subtracted 5% budget cut and divided it by 4, it comes out to $505,000 per 4 district coalition. So I don't understand how you got the allocation difference between the 2.1 million in the current budget and 3.6 million in the district neighborhood office budget to this 1.7 million in the slide here. That's significantly less than a 5% cut.
IC, did you want to?
So this is Vadim. I just want to go ahead.
The funding that goes directly to the DCOs is part of the entire neighborhood outreach and support group, which also includes the funding that is used to fund city staff as well. So I heard what you're saying, but I don't know if all the numbers add up between what you have and what we have. But Sure, we can do all that. But yes, I would like to have the opportunity to respond to you in a more like an email format so that I can get my numbers sorted out rather than trying to, talk about math that I don't quite be able to calculate right now.
Right, thank you. And I think that's the crux of what we're talking about here. We looked at the last year's budget, the approved budget, and it was $3.6 million for neighborhood outreach. There's about 5 employees in Civic Life, I think, that are part of that program. Those programs included 7 coalitions, 3 that were with the city, 4 that were independent. We're transitioning from that $3.6 million with 5 employees and 7 coalitions to 4 coalitions, totaling $1.6 million and those 5 employees. There's a hole of $2 million. Some of that is from the 5 employees. So let's say $900,000 with insurance and all that kind of stuff, 401k plans or the PERS and things like that. Still that leaves a hole of 1 million. So we can talk about this 5% reduction, which we're not saying we want more than anybody else is getting or less than anybody else is getting. We just want to understand the responsibilities that these coalitions have in the context with the money that has historically been allocated for those responsibilities and why that money seemed to have shrunk by something like 30% versus 5%.
Well, you do recall there was also the federal COVID dollars that are also factored in there, perhaps to what you have. That's why I said perhaps.
Yeah, that was the budget request in the budget added. That was the city budgets. So, I mean, that is a good question. If y'all can get back to us on that, because it seems like it's a pretty big hole. And, my understanding is it's been appropriated to other bureaus, but if it's not, then that's something else. But the crux of the matter also is, the literally inequity of having a lot more neighborhood associations. So we have 33, 34, depending on how you look at it. 2 of them are not that active, so 31, but all these other neighborhood coalitions have a similar thing. So there might be 19, but not all of them are actually active. We have to service people's needs for website upgrades. We have to service people who want ethical opinions on, something that they're doing, conflict of interest and so on, and work with lawyers on that. We have to service people that are actively working on in neighborhood things such as street cleaning and perhaps doing parades and perhaps doing street fairs, all of which take some expertise. We're going to have 33, 31 neighborhood associations all asking for a piece of that pie with the same amount of staff we had for 11. Other neighborhood associations will have, 14, or the coalitions will have 14 asking for that same pie. Hey, we want to host a fundraiser. Can you please staff it? Can you please have a note taker? We don't have a secretary right now. These are all the daily things that the staff here are being asked to do, except it's going to triple for us. And in context of that, that's the question: is it per individual in the living in those areas, which is how it's divided, or is a better apples to oranges versus apples to apples comparison the number of neighborhood associations, all of whom want the same services from the coalitions for a reduced budget? So, and that's the thing. And if we figure out where that million goes, I mean, perhaps we can claw some of that back and get it to the coalitions that would need a few more staff members. But if it's been doled out, we'd like to know, whom and where to.
Very good. Okay, excellent. And I would say, so I will speak to this again, and perhaps like a broken record. Each of the areas comes with a city staff person that doesn't have to be retrained. They're well-versed in all of the things that you just mentioned, Vadim. So I feel confident in moving forward. What is going to be very helpful is as we all go through the work sessions to drill in. I mean, we all do a home budget, right? Well, this is just a little bit bigger because this isn't just about a budget. I'm asking, what are the services that are being provided? Who have we been contacting? Is there any cross-referencing that's happening? Are there bureaus within the city that are responsive to any of these things? If so, do we have any duplicative efforts? That's the type of drilling in that we are doing right now. And yes, it doesn't take just an hour to do this work. Yes, we're using big paper so that we can take the information, synthesize it, and then I think create a workable product moving forward to be responsive. You have, Darlene, you have a larger, Allison, you both on, from west to east, we have the largest influx, if you will, of neighborhood associations. And I also want to reintroduce a thought that's not a new thought. It's, train the trainer. So some of this information has to go out and be shared in broader spectrum by equipping others. That's what we call baseline building capacity. And that is something where I know confidently that my team is going to be able to come alongside all of our DCOs to do. There's some administrative tasks that we are going to be able to step into. Small grants and sponsorships. We've been doing that work. We understand how that works. You know what's different? Nonprofits are able to get the money out the door faster than we can. They've got hoops that they don't have to dance through. So guess what? We can be super excited to see money fly out the door. That's a win for us. That's a win for community. That's what I'm looking for. Is some of this going to be MacGyvered? Maybe for a second or two. I mean, how many of us are understanding that this shift and change, we're looking at 18 months to 3 years to really kind of settle in and feel a little rooted in what's been happening. But we're going to have to do this together. We're going to need great ideas. We're going to need to know where there's a gap. Hey, did you see? Did you know? We need that information. So nobody here is shying away from hearing that information. I want to know, is there a million missing? Let's find the million. Let's see where we can distribute it. And again, nobody's trying to not fund. That's the funny thing here. It's not trying to fund. It's, are you saying we don't have the funds? Then what can we do so that we can mitigate the impacts to all? That's the heart and soul of what the work is right now.
I would like to make a quick clarification. CNN, the new district, has 14 neighborhoods, not 19. Just wanted to clarify that because Allison is here and she verified that. Sewell is 19. Allison, CNN is 14.
Our city is sick. Some people say that it's dying. And here we are trying to save money, skimp on the very people, the neighborhoods that can make the biggest difference in our livability and economic development. I'm just looking at some of the things that you had listed up here that Civic Life and the neighborhood are supposed to be working on. Economic development. You just walk around downtown and see how many vacant storefronts there are. I'm from the Pearl. We have 115 vacant stores in my neighborhood. We just lost REI, we lost a Rite Aid pharmacy, and we're losing stores every day. Okay, safety. People are afraid to walk the streets at night. Whether or not you're here in a downtown or you're in a residential neighborhood in Old Town, they feel safe walking around Old Town. My neighbors don't like to walk out at night, but to walk their dogs because they don't feel safe again. We got homelessness. Homelessness is an ongoing issue. We help and find people with their tents and camps, and we move them along, and people within 2 weeks, they come back. And then we find shelters and services for these people, and then they come back. It's a never-ending issue. Livability, graffiti. How many times have we clean up graffiti? Over and over and over again. The city has been spending millions of dollars, right, to clean up graffiti, and we don't see we're not getting any headway. It just comes back over and over again. And then we have this people dying on the streets, people living on the streets, people suffering on the streets. And here we are, we're talking about $100,000, $200,000 that the city can't maintain the funding of the neighborhood associations. To me, it's beyond comprehension. We're not talking about tens of millions of dollars. We're not talking about millions of dollars. We're just talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, giving the problems that this city has right now. And we have the biggest workforce, the people. The people want to make a difference, and we just need direction. And Civic Life has the opportunity to be the guiding light, to be the direction, to help the people fix our city the way we want it to be. So, sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
Thanks very much. I
Yes.
appreciate that. So Marianne again, nobody has mentioned code 3.96, and my neighborhood association is expected to comply with code 3.96. That means I need communication tools, outreach tools, meeting space, Zoom things. So considering the requirements of organizational communications, how does your budget ensure that I can, at a minimum, comply with code 3.96 and muster up the volunteers we need to address some of these issues in our neighborhood?
Can you capture that? Capturing, if there's something I can't answer in the moment, then we're going to capture it and hopefully develop a FAQ page, unless you want to email directly for that.
So I'm just wondering, I mean, I agree, it would be great to have more funding for each of the DCOs. I'm wondering if you have specific savings in mind that might happen through the more centralized program. Like, for example, instead of each neighborhood association having to buy separate insurance, could there be savings and say, like, maybe the city provides the insurance instead of it coming out of that small couple $100,000 budget?
I can answer, the city is not in the insurance business. We were told that we cannot be in the insurance business. We have utilized the efforts of our wonderful DCO partners to help with that. Because we're not supposed to be in the insurance business.
Well, I guess my
Or city
question
attorney.
is like, so on the west side, they've organized so that there's 33 neighborhood associations.
Correct.
And in other districts, you've got fewer neighborhood associations. So you might, and per person, I don't know if you get better services having more neighborhood associations. But I guess, well, it just seems like there should be a way to provide the same level of service through the neighborhood associations throughout the entire city.
Well, and you have two folks who could speak to what the experience has been to work towards that. Darlene, Allison, do you want to speak to the insurance piece?
Yeah, Allison and I can speak to.
The fun that
We
they've
can
been.
certainly speak to insurance. Managing insurance for 31 neighborhoods is a lot different than managing insurance for 11 neighborhoods. So I was ill prepared for that when the city had asked if I could pick up the insurance for the Southwest neighborhoods. I was not prepared for the level of engagement that was going to be necessary from the insurance companies, which was a little bit different than what was required for my 11 neighborhoods, even though it was the same insurance company. When we added the Southwest neighborhoods to us, the amount of information that was required was far more than we had ever provided, which leads Allison and I both to believe that the insurance companies are getting a little tighter with who they insure and what they insure. One of the things that we were able to do to sort of solidly as we possibly could to get the insurance company to make sure they picked us up, because we were on a really tight deadline too. The Southwest insurance ran out in November, and I think the city contacted me the end of September. So we had to like push some tush to get all of that handled. But, and then we saw the requirements were far more than they had been. And Allison and I are getting the vibe that perhaps Philadelphia Insurance, which is our current liability insurance carrier, may either require more insurance or more documentation from the neighborhoods before they consider dropping us. But there's that in the winds too. So we're going to have to be looking for another insurance provider. we think, in our future. And Allison's experience and she was asked to provide the insurance for the East Portland neighborhoods, which were all new to her too. So I'll give you that. Allison, you can share your experience.
I'll try to make it really brief, but one of the things that you have to understand is that we are the 501c3, so we're the charitable nonprofit that takes on all the groups. And yes, insurance is less expensive when you bundle it together. But the other thing you have to understand is that not only do we take on the groups, we take on the liability too. So as Darlene's talking about some of the things that we had to do, we both had to present to a board of directors. The board of directors had to approve it. They had to approve bylaw changes or resolutions in our case, because we had to do it so quickly. We didn't have time to change the bylaws. We had time to do a resolution, which meant that we could go outside our geographical area to serve other entities, other neighborhoods. And one of the things that she was talking about, the information, and the reason it was, what did you call it? Pushing tush. Anyway, in order to do that, we had to make sure that these folks they had all of their paperwork with the state. They were registered with the Department of Justice. They've done CT12s. They had an active board of directors. They had minutes, because if you're insuring somebody for directors and officers insurance, you sure as heck better have a record of what you're doing. Sorry. You sure as heck better have record of what you're doing. And so it wasn't just a matter of insuring them. It was a matter of all the work that led up to it. And it has been really crazy, because in our case, right now, we're only funded for the neighborhoods that we serve. Now we've picked up other neighborhoods, and it's a lot of work. And so even for my area that doesn't have as many neighborhoods as you are, and by no means am I saying that we should have the same amount of money. I'm just saying that for me and for us, it was horrible, because a lot of the neighborhoods that were in the East hadn't registered with the state in 5 years. Now, were they still meeting? Sure, they were still having these meetings and going along like everything was great, but no one reminded them they had to do those things. So for us, I would love to tell you that we could do insurance all together. We've looked at it before, and we're going to be lucky if we can carry insurance for that many other organizations, because we're required by the city for 2 million overall. Now we're looking at 4, because it's really the only way that the insurance companies will cover us. And we've been told, Central Northeast Neighbors, which now we're going to be District 1, because everybody in East looks it up and looks at me and says, not Central Northeast Neighbors, where are you? But anyway, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I'm sorry, but it's going to be very difficult, because we have to Philadelphia. That was what I was going to say. Philadelphia has already told, our agent has already told me, and through Philadelphia, they're dropping us for directors and officers insurance. We've been with them for like 22 years. So we've never had a claim. Why? Because we added all of the neighborhoods onto our policy from East, and it was just too much. And you would not believe, every time I turned in information to the insurance company, they asked for something else. The last thing they asked for, you ready for this one? Profit and loss statements from each neighborhood association. Try to make that one up from, people that look at me when I say profit and loss statements, they kind of go, what's that? We have a checkbook. Anyway, sorry, I took up too much time.
No, that was really excellent. And then it goes to where we are in our discussion. It's a lot more expensive to provide insurance to 30 plus neighborhoods than it is to provide insurance to 14 neighborhoods or 19 neighborhoods. And that is a big unfairness piece, as far as I'm concerned, for Neighbors West Northwest, that we were funded like everybody else, but we have 3 times as many neighborhoods.
We have.
Online.
Sure.
And also, folks, if you're speaking, if you could introduce yourself first. A lot of people online are asking who's talking. So But, okay, this is from Liz Kelly Campanelli from Linton Association. Could the funding for insurance be line itemed out on a per neighborhood basis and distributed to each coalition prior to dividing the rest of the money? It's a good idea. Anyway, it's a question for you.
Oh, wait a minute, line itemed out. Does she think that, is she saying that each neighborhood should get X amount of money?
She's proposing in her question whether before those funds are distributed per neighborhood association, the cost for insuring gets taken, and then after that, then it's divided evenly among each coalition.
I have all,
That's the question.
I know.
Okay.
I just want to
I'm
add to
putting that
that.
one
I
in
have
the back
already
page.
requested a stipend on top of what we're getting for insurance, and that didn't go anywhere, so I'm just saying. Go ahead, Kimberly.
It's a great question. I can't answer that to see if it can be a separate line item. So I wrote it down or typed it down. So it can be answered.
And I'm gonna,
Good question, Liz.
yeah, thank you, Liz. I'm gonna ask this. I'm sorry, I lost this. We have many, many questions here. Okay. My understanding is that there is a list of functions that the nonprofit neighborhood coalitions are required to fulfill, and that additional services they offered are subject to being reduced if additional funding cannot be procured. Is the Office of Civic Life expecting to shoulder these additional services?
So I would backtrack and say that is the purpose of the work sessions. I believe what that person might be referring to is that every coalition office has a scope of work that they provide to us as part of their grant funding. And so what we are looking at now is their current scope of work. Is this still doable? Looking at what's here, is this still doable? Where can we find efficiencies? Where do we align? Where do we find resources? And then create from there.
Okay, and could I do one more question on one? This is from Dean Smith. Did the overall budget consider Sweeney received almost $300,000 annually to provide the services to its 17 neighborhood associations and the community as a whole before it was cut from the budget? Did these budget numbers consider the true historic baseline for funding?
I wouldn't have that knowledge specifically.
Yeah, specifically, Sweeney received a comparable amount to Neighbors West Northwest for about $300,000
No,
pre-pandemic.
I'm aware of that. I don't know if it was, the question was it considered?
Right, so yeah, basically, there was funding from the city for those 17 neighborhoods in the amount comparable to what Neighbors West Northwest receives on an annual basis. But in taking on those 17 neighborhoods plus the other 4 across on the other side of the river, the amount of increase was 70, well, 44 when we back out. It seems like
So
that's
I
quite a
think that
big delta.
marries with an earlier question that IC is going to go and take a look at the math and the numbers and what have you.
And I actually have one personal question from myself, not online. Your team that is overseeing each district, I'm curious if there's been conversations within your office, within Sharon and other folks that are about the workload that the ones that have 34 neighborhood associations are going to have to deal with versus ones that have 14, and whether you and your team internally have discussed that, or are people getting paid more or getting more resources within your department to handle 34 versus 14?
There hasn't been any budget discussion, and we're still in the throes of working through the scope of work.
Because I would
So
really
what
want
the
the
roles-
14 versus the 34.
Right, with the roles and responsibilities and how we divide up, we're still in that process. IC, did you have something? I wasn't sure if you had
Let's take
something
a
to
couple
share.
more from online. Let's take a couple more from online. I see there's 55 in Q&A.
Not all our questions.
Oh, okay, good.
And some of them you
Or
wouldn't,
just
yeah.
bad words.
they're not productive. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah, let's just keep it productive.
Okay, this is from Gary Berger. What is the budget for all 7 coalitions this year? And how does that compare to the proposed budget for these 4 districts? I think we've kind of gone over that.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea. Okay, so what you gave was the whole budget for this year, for the coalitions and the district association.
I see. Are you still needing to get the numbers for? And do you need a mic?
I'm not sure which proposed budget you're looking at, and it's just that because the CBO's office haven't published them. So when you're reviewing budget documents, there's a difference between last year's adopted budget versus this year's requested budget. Because within the year timeline, there is 2 budget monitoring process that the city also go into. So those 2 monitoring process can also adjust the Bureau's count number budget. And that doesn't get captured in the way that the general public would be able to understand or see it. So there may be a number that the public will see from the adopted version to the next adopted version, but it doesn't explain the difference in between why there is an increase or why there is a decrease. So it happens both ways. What I can say about, and again, like him, I'm fairly newer to Civic Life. So when I came here, kind of hear a little bit about Sweeney. Their budget is part of Civic Life's budget. So whether the funding did not go out to a nonprofit model, it was used or allocated as one of the city-run coalition, because we have 3. We have East, North, and Southwest. So that funding was reallocated to support Southwest staffing, programming, small grants, and such. So there's that. The other thing that I wanted to add is the hierarchy of the funding structure. So the neighborhood, what we call neighborhood outreach and support, reports to a higher structure, which is Scenic. And Scenic has its own budget, but on the budget document, you don't see the separation. You only see the Scenic line item, which incorporates Scenic and neighborhoods. So it's the number that you see can be skewed a little bit unless you really drill down on it to see the different programs that report to the higher program. And also the second piece to that is, like I said, during the last, you don't see the transition or the changes from the monitoring process. During last year's monitoring process, the fall bump, the Bureau lost 2 positions. And one of those positions belongs to Scenic. So there's funding. Scenic is a community neighborhood involvement center. It's everything that is our main cost center for Civic Life, and incorporates, and from there it kind of divided into different programs. So you're seeing the overarching cost center number. So the 2 positions that we lost in the fall bump, one of them belongs to Scenic, and the budget document shows neighborhood outreach and support. So it can be misleading that that group lost that money, but rather that position was never allocated to that group originally. It's kind of muddled together unless you really break it out. What I can say this time is that during the realignment of 24-25 to align with the 4 voting district, again, the actions that we took does have impact on the services and the programs that we have. However, it was requested that we do it. So we lost 2 additional positions in this transition, in this requested budget session. And I would also like to add that I understand that while we can all use more money, and of course we can, Civic Life's budget is 0.1% of the entire city's budget. So it's the constraint that we have as a bureau that we were requested to carry out and still provide the services that we do. The 5% reduction equates to about $375,000. So with the alignment, we, in total realignment, it reduced the position count for the neighborhoods. Went to 5 for the 4 coordinators for each district, and then the supervisor for the coordinators. I can get into more details if you like, but you may want this time, for other questions, and we can definitely provide you more additional information via email or through your coalition offices. And the requested budget should be published soon.
I'm going to ask Mary Ann's question one more time. There were 7 coalition areas. Now there's 4. Those 3 other coalition areas were funded about equal to what the DCOs, the district coalition nonprofits, were making. So just in clarity, a question that we would like to see answered is what happened to that other money? It didn't come to the district coalitions. So where did that money go? Because I think it was all of the coalition's expectations that we would see some of that money roll over to us when we took over the entire west side. And we did not. And so what happened to that? The money that was funding the district associations did not end up in our coffers. And so clearly I'd like to know, where did that money go? What? Yeah, yeah, got the work and nothing to go with it. Yeah, go ahead, Rob. And then we'll take one
I just have a
more.
quick follow-up for you. You referred to the Sweeney money being brought into Civic Life and administered by Civic Life. What was the total of that? Was it in the 300,000 range? That were in Civic Life, correct? Okay, so under this model, it doesn't appear to me, and I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong, that the 300,000 that was used to support Sweeney in Civic Life is being added to the Neighbors Northwest budget, because so where'd that money go? If it was neighborhood coalition money administered by the city, why isn't it being directed out under the new model that is being imposed by Civic Life? Right, but there was 300, the point I'm trying to get at, if there was 300,000 that you could consider to be Sweeney money, but not administered by Sweeney, administered by Civic Life for Southwest, and now we have a new model, why isn't that 300,000 going to the coalition? The district, what you call the District 4 coalition? Because it really, if I'm right, it represents a far greater than 5% restraints on District 4 coalition. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So where'd the money go? You're saying the city council asked you to reduce that and move neighborhood coalition money out? But the money, okay, so, well, I think my point stands that the combined money for Sweeney administered by Civic Life and the money that the Northwest Coalition got directly, if you add the two together and look at what's proposed for the coming year, it's far less than the total. Whether it's two positions turning into one, I'm looking at the total amount of money. And I think that's wrong. That's not.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, this is from Leslie Hammond. If the Sweeney budget was given to two city staff, why are the services substantially less than when Sweeney was acting as the coalition? People have far less service than they had before.
I think that when we bring the Sweeney question into the room, that has other things that are attached to it, and I don't think that we're going to delineate through all those things at this time. I think ultimately what I'm hearing is there's some funding that was there. Where did the funding go? Why do we not have it? I think that's the baseline question. And so that's what I have written down.
And this one, this is from Liz Kelly Campanelli. Are there grant opportunities that could be used to secure additional funding for the coalitions?
Are there grant opportunities that can be utilized to secure, so outside of the city?
Or within the city or outside of the city?
So there's no restriction for any of the district coalitions? Is that the question, to seek other grants?
Yes.
Let's talk about, are there grants in the city?
Are there grants in the city? that
No,
you were-
none known to me.
Okay. So outside sources then. Okay, other questions in the room? We got one back there, and then we'll take two more, and that should take us pretty close.
Doing good.
Thanks. Todd Zarnitz, president of the Northwest District Association. So to kind of like start kind of capping things up or kind of getting towards some sort of conclusion, is this, I think, you know, the questions are pretty valid of what, you know, and the concerns that we're talking about here. Is there an opportunity to revisit this idea just to evenly slice the pie of funds, or is that done and that will not be revisited?
Well, I'm not making that decision, so I'll write your question down.
It's been recommended we go in front of city council. It's been recommended we go in front of city council.
Sarah Silky, candidate for City Council District 4. This is kind of a small thing, but are the new coalitions thinking about renaming themselves to reflect their bigger areas now? just, as somebody who lives in Southwest, I hear a lot of people like, what do you mean we're in Northwest? So just,
Say that everybody in District 4 understands they will be the District 4 coalition. There's no mix-up. We are currently doing business as District 4, to be honest.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. That's what we'll be doing is doing business as.
Okay,
Is there one more? Did I miss?
another question from online, Carl?
Sure.
Okay. This could be our last question because Kim has asked us to break down it.
This is from Diane Stewart. Could you provide the entire budget for Civic Life so we can see costs going through to administration and civic outreach, staffing, et cetera?
Noted. Putting it in the question box.
Noted, Diane.
Noted.
Got one more? We might as well take full advantage of the time the city's giving us.
This is from anonymous attendee. Given the city's belief that dividing funds on a per person basis is equitable, ignoring the vastly different issues and costs associated with those issues facing individual neighborhood associations, has there been consideration by the city to redraw neighborhood boundaries along neighborhood emergency teams boundaries? The earlier slide alluded to the NATs, but made no mention of them.
Was that the earlier GTAC slides or civic?
The net teams.
Net team. Right.
I'm going to answer that question. That is a big question. As I stand here in front of you today, I'm going to be clear that there aren't very many neighborhoods that are interested in changing their boundaries for anybody, let alone to coincide with net teams, which is a very important thing. I will also throw this out, and this has come forward a couple of times. There are some neighborhoods that are small that are asking me, can they merge with another neighborhood? It's a good idea. I can't define that process yet, but I do think that that's something that some neighborhoods are considering to be able to reduce some of our costs. So it's a big move, and I don't exactly know what that looks like, but that's one idea that some of the neighborhoods are throwing out. Any other questions? Should we wrap it up? Does anybody have any last minute wisdoms they would like to share with us? Okay, guys. What? Okay, go ahead.
This is from Claire from Bridal Mile. When are those work sessions happening that you, to determine the scope of work that you alluded to? She's curious.
So we've had 2 work sessions, and so we're scheduling our third.
Okay. So it's not.
It's not yet.
It's not scheduled yet. Okay. Great.
And just to let you know, those work sessions have typically been with DCO staff and city staff. DCO staff going through their scope of work and city staff responding to, well, we could do this and maybe we can do this. And just a thought, Kimberly, even though you guys will, and I feel that, support us with your district association team, current district association team, that does not take away the fact that I have 33 neighborhoods that I have to buy insurance for. So while that service is going to be helpful in making sure that the neighborhoods are getting good service, it's not going to be helpful on our budget because I'm still bleeding that many neighborhoods. So, and that's the issue I think we're all in here to let you know. We're double the size of most of the coalitions at this point, more than double in some cases. You have a song you want to sing? Are there any last minute questions? This is it. Any more? One last online? This will be it. This is our wrap up question. I won't keep you any further. Thank you so much for being here too. Kimberly Dixon is from Civic Life. And I think Murad had been to all these except for ours, right?
Correct.
And Murad is the acting director of Civic Life. I don't know why he didn't come to ours, which I will ask him that myself.
Then I have Summer Money who's present, one of our
Yeah, thank
coordinators.
you.
I also have Icy Taw, Business Operations Manager.
Thank you all for being here too.
Thank you guys for being such a great group. Thank you for your concerns, your questions, your attention. Again, your questions, great questions. One more? And as a reminder, GTAC is also going to be providing information sessions in the month of March.
Hey, everyone, I know you guys work your butts off, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, Kim.
And thank you for being- I appreciate your support.